Did you know there's a place in the world that's a country within a country?
Yeah, it's a country made up of only one city. And today, we're going to tell you all about it.
Yep.
Welcome to Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa. And today we are going back to Italy, and we're going to look at something really unique in Italy.
A country all by itself within a city.
So technically not even really Italy.
No, if you want to be specific, it's its own country.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about the Vatican City, which is its own country.
Inside Rome.
It's pretty cool.
It's a city and a country.
All in
one.
So if you go to Rome, you don't actually have to have your passport to go from Rome, the city, into Vatican City, but you really are in another country. They have their own flag and everything.
And so if you want the history on that, look it up. It's pretty interesting.
Today we'll just show you some pictures of when we went to the Vatican City and some things we thought were pretty cool while we were there. We started off by just taking a walking tour. We didn't actually go inside because if you want to go inside St. Peter's Basilica, which is the largest church.
Yeah,
building.
by the way, when I said St. Peter's Basilica last week, talking about that church building in Venice, this is what I was referring to. This is St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah.
And the one in Venice is St. Mark's Basilica.
It makes sense. It's just named after
a
different disciple. But it's a very famous city, and if you, and a very important city if you're Catholic, because you're gonna want to spend a lot of time here because this is where the Pope is. But we can be thankful for the creativity of people who did a lot of the buildings and architecture here. It's just sad to think that some people think that this is your way to get to heaven.
Because it is not.
It is not.
It is beautiful, but it is empty, and it is not the way, the truth, or the life.
Nope. There's a lot of skilled builders, and a lot of the pictures we're going to show you today, if you know anything about photography, they're taken with wide-angle lenses. So that means that the pictures, you can see the whole thing, and the lens on the camera makes the objects look a little bit smaller, so it fits in the frame. But this is massive. If you were to stand at the base of it, you would feel tiny. This picture makes it look small. So the church is situated in the middle, and then there's rows of columns like this on the side. This would be like to the right, and then to the left of this main part of the basilica, like the main entrance area.
This is really the main part of the city/country, too.
Of the Vatican.
Right here.
Yeah. So people are all lined up on the side to get into St. Peter's Basilica, and a lot of people want to get in there to see like some of the different sites, but they really want to get in to see the Sistine Chapel, which has all of the very famous paintings on the ceiling. We were not going to stand in that line, so we just enjoyed.
It was a hot day, too.
It was. And this is like all these cobblestone bricks and everything, so everything is just hot wherever you are. So here's what, and maybe this will help you take it in. Here's a picture with a lens that's kind of what your eye is going to see. Now the next picture is a picture I took standing there in the middle with a wide angle lens. So then you can see, wow, now that building looks small, and look at all else that's around it. That can kind of help you, hopefully, take into perspective how big everything is in Rome. You really need a wide camera to take it all in. But this is the main part of Vatican City, and everything is very balanced. It feels like if you were to cut it in half, it would be exactly symmetrical as to the shape of everything, and all the lines and everything keep pointing back to this main building. And here is that main entrance from the side. You can kind of see the lines of people going up to it. If you wanted to go into this church building, women would have to have their heads covered. So you would have to buy a scarf to be able to get in there if you didn't bring your own, which is interesting that they can still require that. And I'm pretty sure for this one too, you couldn't wear shorts.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You had to have clothing at least to your knee, which is crazy if you think about a world site like that requiring such high levels of modesty. Interesting, though. In the middle of that whole
common area,
plaza area, I guess, there are a lot of fountains throughout all of Rome, but there's this one really pretty one in the middle of their plaza area, and then a lot of obelisks, which you can see to the back and left of the fountain.
Imported from Egypt.
Yeah.
Those are not original there. They took those from Egypt and brought them here.
Mm-hmm. So you can see all those columns behind the obelisk, and I showed you a picture at the beginning. If you were to walk between them, because they're actually 2 rows of columns, this is what they look like, with really cool hanging light fixtures in the middle, and they're just massive, huge pillars.
60, 80 feet tall?
Yeah.
Something probably like that.
They are just huge. So if you back up and you want to take in more of the plaza, it looks like this. So you can kind of see it's a more of a rounded shape. You just can't get a camera wide enough to get it all in.
It is. It's like a big oval.
Mm-hmm.
And there's space for thousands and thousands and thousands of people there.
Yep. When I went with Carrie and we visited Rome, we were there on a Sunday, just because of how it worked in our schedule, and we didn't realize it, but every Sunday the Pope speaks from the basilica or like from a standing area around there, and people pack into this plaza to hear him talk. And the guide told us that we should start in the Vatican City and just work our way out through Rome, and so we ended up being there when he was speaking, and I couldn't understand why there were so many people and security, and we were standing right outside all of those big columns because they actually had security guards that would only let so many people in after you passed through security and whatever. But it's a big deal, and they can fit a lot of people in that space. So if you just turn around from here, you would see a street going all the way back out. So that was the complete Vatican City. There it was.
That's the whole country.
You can walk down that street and you're back in Rome again.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bring cars in, though. The only cars that are there are like emergency vehicles.
Security, probably.
Yeah. It's just walking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like... And there are cars and stuff everywhere, all over the rest of the city, which makes this kind of unique. But it's probably a good idea since there's so many people there. You can't just drive right down the middle or anything. So, that was a little tour of the Vatican City from our time in Rome last year.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
So, I think I have some more story to tell you.
All right.
Do you want to hear some more?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And raise your hand if you saw Olaf last week. We forgot to mention that something was hiding, but hopefully you figured that out. And something different this week.
Yep. Hopefully you can find it. Just something hiding around here somewhere.
Yep, just somewhere.
Okay, well, let's do a little bit more of our story about Amy. So we ended our story last time by talking about another girl who came to Amy. She wasn't a temple girl, but she came to Amy and her family found out and got very upset and angry, and they surrounded the area where Amy lived. Well, Jewel told her family, she said, I love Jesus and I don't want to worship idols, and I'm going to stay here with Amy. Now that was a big decision for her to make, because that meant her family didn't want to talk to her anymore. They really weren't going to have anything to do with her. Basically, it's like she had died to them. But she made that choice because she knew that God loved her, Jesus had paid for her sins, and that she wanted a better life, a life focused on serving and loving others. And Amy began to see that pattern again and again of people turning to God, of children, of young girls turning to God and understanding that He loved and cared about them, and that He created them for a special purpose. He had a special reason. Well, today our story is going to talk about, back at the beginning of Amy's life, about how God provides, but not always in the way that we think He's going to provide. So back when she lived in Ireland, Amy was helping out with an orphanage. And one of the things she would do is she would go around to different places and help raise money to take care of the children and to make sure that they had what they needed. So she would go to different houses, and one day she went to a house, a beautiful house of a man who had a lot of money, and she thought, this is great. He has so much money to build this beautiful house. He'll be able to give us some money, and basically she could be done raising money for the day. So she went to his house and she explained to him why she was there and how they needed money to help take care of the children, and he got angry with her. He got so mad and sent her away. Didn't even give her any money. She thought, well, it seems like this would be the most obvious of people to give money. Someone who had enough to build a beautiful house could just share some with the others, with those who need it. But she realized sometimes, and a lot of times actually, God provides in ways that we don't expect, not the way we think he's going to provide. So today, as we look at how she helped the children in India, we're going to see how he provides in so many really unique and different ways. So she's living outside the city in her own little village outside Dohnavur, and she had more and more children coming to her all the time. More girls who are coming from the temple or coming from families that couldn't take care of them, or all sorts of different stories. Each girl had a different story, but they came to Amy because they wanted a different life or their families couldn't care for them. So she began to share God's love with them, and her family kept getting bigger and bigger, and she started needing money. They needed money to build more buildings. They needed money for food and for clothes and for people to help take care of the grounds, and there were just so many of them. At one point, there were 42 girls who joined her family in 1 month. That's a lot more people to take care of when it's just one person. So she definitely needed more people to help out. So God reminded her, you know what? He'll take care of you, even in ways you don't expect. So at one time, she needed about 100 pounds, which in our terms, our money nowadays, would be about $6,000 to $8,000. That is a lot of money. So they needed this money, and she told the girls, and they began to pray. They began to pray and ask that God would provide it. Well, one day they got a stack of mail, and they were so excited. All these letters in one box, and they thought, this is how God's going to provide. So they opened a letter. No money, but they read the message, and it was notes from people all over the world, just saying how they'd heard about what Amy was doing, and they were praying for her ministry. And they opened letter after letter after letter, and there wasn't any money. And the girls even took the envelopes and shook them upside down. There was nothing there. They thought, we have this whole stack of mail. Of course God's going to provide money. He's going to provide what we need. They got down to the last letter, and it was from Amy's secretary, who handled like all the money, and sent it to her as it came in. And she said, that last letter said, there'll be 66 pounds coming to you. But there was no money in the envelope. Well, okay. That wasn't exactly how Amy and the girls expected that God would provide. But they were thankful that there was some money coming. So the girls cheered and they were excited. There was 66 pounds coming, but what about the other 34? Where's that going to come from? And they don't even have the money with them right now. They just said it's coming. Well, they had a box to open. And they opened the box. And the box was from another mission in India. And this other mission was promising 51 more pounds. They were sending more money. That's even more than what they needed. And God provided in ways they never expected. There were also some things for the girls in the box too. And Mary was again reminded, God's going to take care of you. It might not seem like the way you think God's going to take care of you, but he will. He cares about his children, and he wanted to take care of Amy and the girls. And they began to see that over and over again. God provided in some of the most unique ways. She tells stories of how a little girl sent her pennies all the way to India because that's what she had, and she wanted to give it to the ministry and to the girls there. She had stories of how people, some little ladies, little 84-year-old ladies would make sweaters and send them for the babies that would come to Amy's village, and how children in South America would get money from selling candy, and they would send their money over. And little bits, and another girl who wanted to buy a doll. But instead of getting a doll, she put the money in an envelope and she sent it to Amy. God provided in so many amazing ways exactly what they needed. Through items, through tools that somebody sent, or books. God provided exactly what they needed again and again. And Amy was reminded, God will provide, not necessarily in the way she thought, but he would take care of them because this is what he had called her to do. And he cared even about the little things. Well, they began to pray and think about a car. Now, taking journeys all the time to go help rescue girls or to help out somebody else or to go to a hospital, they would have to take a little bandy wagon, which was like really, really bumpy for long journeys and would take a long time, and you'd have to pay money. So they began to pray, and Amy felt a little bad at first asking God for money because it was going to be very expensive to buy a car. Not many people had them, but she thought maybe it would really help them out. Well, one time Amy was called on a rescue mission for a girl, and she took the journey over there to get the girl, and then on the way back, something happened with her rider, and her trip took twice as long to get back, and she had to pay 3 times as much money to get back home because the driver knew she wanted to get home and knew she was desperate, and so he just charged her that amount. And she realized, okay, we really do need a car. And they began to pray and ask God about providing money for them for a car. And guess what? God did. God had somebody send Amy a letter with money inside of it that would be equivalent to about $10,000 nowadays. He just sent it to her just like that, and the person said, for a car. And now Amy hadn't made a video about how she needed a car or sent letters everywhere. She had been praying, and God had laid the burden on somebody else's heart to provide the money that she needed. And they kept praying, and God provided all the rest of the money that they needed, and they were able to buy a car. And they were able to build more buildings. They built a hospital with a tin roof so they'd be able to have people come in, even during rainy season, to help take care of them. And Amy began to realize too that she had only had girls come in, but there were boys who needed a home too. Some boys that didn't have a place to go or that were in bad situations. And so she began to pray that God would continue to expand their village to be able to let boys come in. But as they expanded, they got to a point where she couldn't build any more buildings, and they still had more children coming in and more needs for the people in the area. And she began to notice that the land next to them was basically empty. There was just like a little house kind of thing there, but there wasn't that much. So she contacted the owners about it, but the owners didn't want to sell because the land had a shrine on it, at a place where they would worship idols and worship gods, and they did not want to sell it to her because they wanted to have that place for worshiping. But Amy felt like the next thing she needed to do was to keep building, and to keep helping the people, and to help the children in the area. So how is God going to work this out? Well, we've seen how he can work out some pretty amazing things. Do you think she'll be able to buy that land and expand where she is, or are they going to sell it? You're going to have to come back next week and find out. Her story is pretty cool and amazing though, how God provides in all sorts of ways.
All right. Last week we talked to you about how we were supposed to be at the Olympics this week.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, I showed you pictures from the Olympics 4 years ago when I went, and I partnered with Sports Event Evangelism to help them share the gospel in Brazil. So I'm going to show you some more of that today, and hopefully gets you excited about maybe joining us someday.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can go to Japan this next year. So here is the group that I was part of, and while you're there at the Olympics, you see people from all over the world. Some of them you don't know. Some of them are a little more famous. Like, this is my roommate in the green, Matthew. And we're riding along down from this one place at the end of the day. And he said, wait, I want to get my picture with that guy. That's some American wrestler. This, if you don't know who this is a guy named Floyd Mayweather. He's a not wrestler, boxer. He is a professional boxer, and this guy from New Zealand just spotted him and knew exactly who he was.
Wow.
So I got a picture of him with
Cool.
him. This, if you know soccer, you may recognize this as Ronaldinho from Brazil, who played soccer in Europe and is one of the best soccer players in the world. And he was just out juggling the soccer ball on the beach with some other people, and my New Zealand friend recognized him too. Or maybe that was somebody else. Somebody recognized him, so we got a picture with him. And I posted a picture on Facebook, and I said, supposedly this guy's famous. And all these people who knew who he was started commenting and thought it was cool that I got to get my picture with him.
Oh!
You might get you to take a picture with a statue. I don't know who that is, but somebody was pretending to be a statue and get pictures with people. That was kind of funny. Someone asked if I felt safe down there, because this place in Brazil is known for its high crime rates. This is at the beach, and there's like a military boat just right out there in the water.
Hmm.
And everywhere you looked, there were soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very safe. And I assume Japan will be the same way. I'm sure Japan has their own police or military, some kind of security that's going to be there keeping everyone safe. So that's nothing to worry about. This is really neat. A guy came, one of the soldiers, and he wanted the booklets we were handing out.
Oh, cool.
And so, and also, if you went up and asked one of them to get a picture with them, they would let you. They're really nice soldiers everywhere. So anyway, they gave him a booklet, several booklets, and then he went and started sharing it with his friends. And that was
cool.
really cool. That was fun to get this picture. I believe both of these men in this picture got saved. I think I have another picture where they're both praying or something like that. But many people had the opportunity to share the gospel and actually lead people to Christ while we were there. And so that's a lot of fun to see, new brothers in Christ. This is a man, I don't know if he was homeless or not, but he was playing his guitar and he had his case open for people to put money in. And I didn't have money, but I dropped a booklet in there. And then as I walked back on my way back later, he was reading it.
Oh.
So that was really neat. This, some of you may recognize as the Christ the Redeemer statue, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the booklets we gave away were based on that theme, the 7 wonders of the world. And then it segued from there into the gospel. And so we went up there, and right at the, basically you could say at the feet of Jesus, this statue, this isn't really Jesus, just a statue, but at the base we were able to share the gospel with many people. So that was a really great opportunity. As you can see, there was just lots of people up there for good reason. It's a famous monument there.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a couple pictures I overlaid of people right at the base. Here we had all the booklets standing up right on the pedestal there so that people could go and see that we had all these things in their language. Well, while we were there, a priest came up with this lady and did some kind of short ceremony thing. And then he noticed the booklets, and he saw us. And he told the park people, the national park people, that we were not allowed to be there.
Oops.
And when you're there, even if you don't care, if you're the national park staff and you don't care that we're there, but if the priest tells you we can't be there, you listen to the priest. And so they told us we had to leave. And they said, we're sorry, we don't want to make you leave, but he's in charge. And so you have to go.
Whew.
So we packed up everything, and we didn't send any more groups up there to hand out booklets rest of the week. They went up there just for the sightseeing, but not to actually hand out booklets. So that was kind of sad. More Catholicism that's just empty right there in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in Vatican City. So there's a picture of me on one of the beaches with the Rio 2016 sign. This is the youngest girl in our group. She was 6, maybe 6. And this was the oldest guy in the group, 86.
Whoa.
And these both came from the same church.
Oh, that's cool.
This group here is mostly made up of a church from Canada that came. They sent several of their people, and they all worked together that week with us. So it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, really how old you are. You can come. You can come as a family. You can come as a church. You can. Hopefully, we can go to Japan next year. But then there's more after that. There's Paris. There's Los Angeles. Come join us. We would love to have you. Sports Event Evangelism would love to have you as a part of their group to share the gospel at the Olympics. We were able to speak with people from at least 103 different countries, which is about 50% of the countries in the world. We were able to witness and not just hand out a booklet, but actually talk to 880 people. Saw at least 28 people saved, and more people that contacted us afterward that said they were saved. And then overall, we handed out at least 108,000 booklets. Some people brought some wordless bracelets and a few other things that people brought. And we were able to hand all these out over the span of about 9 days.
Wow.
So there you go. That is the Olympics and Sports Event Evangelism. And like I said, we hope to go this next year since we're not there now. And we'd love to have you come with us. And if not in 2021, maybe in 2024. It's a great ministry. And it's just fun to be part of.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Please comment below. Let us know if you learned anything. Share this with your friends. We're going to keep going. Next week, we're going to look at some more of Italy and the last part of Amy Carmichael.
Yep.
So, join us then. Until then, have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.